2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Maximum brightness. If you haven't watched my unboxing on this, MidTen, an Amazon company, reached out to me many months ago and asked if I'd be interested in reviewing some of their products. This $35 red dot was one of the things that really stuck out to me because it reminded me a lot of a Bushnell TR25. If you're unfamiliar with what that is, it's a very small, fairly inexpensive red dot, usually between 60 or 90 bucks. This coming in at about $35 or less is quite an offering if it actually works halfway decent. I'm usually a proprietor of buying once, crying once, or at least buying whatever you can afford at the time to be the best possible thing, because ultimately, the better the product you have, the longer it might last, and the more enjoyment you're going to get out of it, possibly a better experience. But let's say if you've never had a red dot before, or you want to buy one for an airsoft gun and you're going really cheap, this is an option. Now, there really isn't a whole lot to talk about this thing. If you want to find out more, go watch my unboxing, but ultimately it's a very simple, small, cheap, functional red dot. Now, how functional it is all depends on what you are going to expect for a $35 optic. If you're expecting this thing to be super bright, you'd be wrong. It's not really that bright. In fact, at its maximum during daylight hours, it's just what I'd quantify as being bright enough to be usable. Now, everything else other than that, like you just saw it during the laundry room clearing, it was perfectly adequate. So if it's anything less than perfect, bright, sunny days, you should have no problems with the illumination whatsoever. Unfortunately, you only have a very minor amount of adjustability before it gets so dark that it basically turns off. During my time using this thing, I had no real issues with it. It works as well as one would expect any sort of product to work, which is, you know what, half of the battle, unfortunately. But it does have that air and that feel of inexpensive quality to it. The major thing that I'd be mostly concerned about with this is longevity. Yeah, it's only $35, it's fairly inexpensive, but the last thing you want to do is throw this on a firearm or an airsoft gun, use it once, hit it into something, and then it just flat out fails on you. No one wants that out of any product at any price point. With that being said, I'm sure you could easily reach out to them and they'll gladly help you. If not, buy another one from Amazon and return it. It wouldn't be the first time anyone's ever done that. However, speaking of this product by itself as is, you can see there's not really distortion to the glass. There is a slight amount of tint and the window through this thing is fairly small, but ultimately you're going to have that with any really inexpensive red dot. The Bushnell TR25 is not that far off. No, I have not reviewed one yet, but a good friend of mine has it, and it's a decent little red dot, but again, it falls into that ploy where it's, still a very inexpensive red dot. How much could you really trust it? He's got it on a 1022 and it works perfectly adequate for that. And I'm pretty sure this would work adequate for that as well. I put a couple hundred rounds of 22 through this and had no real issues. But again, your mileage might vary. With the primary arms Gen 4 LER behind it, you can see there's a little bit of an oblongness to the center dot. And once we start to shift around, it does do some wacky things, but that's mostly down to the magnifier. The image through it with the magnifier is very good, especially as you can see, I adjust it to get the image just so. So if you do get one of these and run a really inexpensive magnifier like this, you easily can with no problems. You're going to have a very functional package, and albeit one that's under 200 bucks for everything. Now that price might excite you, but if you're going to be running this on something with a lot of recoil or expect to trust this thing with your life, I'm going to say look elsewhere. Spend your money more wisely than this. But if you're wanting to build an inexpensive airsoft gun, this would be perfect for you. If you want to experience how a red dot's going to work in some environments and just want to test it out and don't want to spend $200 on something, then you can get this to try it out, and at the price point, it's practically disposable. Now, I don't like buying disposable things because ultimately it just makes me feel like I'm wasting money time and time again. But ultimately, it all comes down to you and what you want to use with this thing. Enough of me ranting. Talking about this thing, you can clearly see that the illumination is just really noticeable during the sunlight hours. Now, yes, to make a comparison, the Bushnell TR25 is going to be brighter, but my friends had issues with that, with the battery getting a little loose and the illumination just completely shutting off. I can at least say that didn't happen with this thing during my testing. Just remember though, that's testing with a 22LR, not a 223 or something higher. I'm pretty sure this thing would explode if you were putting it on top of a heavy recoil in 308. As far as distortion through it, like you've already seen, and you can see again here, it's really not that bad. There's almost none. And the tint is very, very minimal. From the front, you can see the emitter, but also, again, it doesn't get so bright that you can see the flash coming from the front. Do I recommend this? There are a lot of other options out there, but all of them are going to be basically more expensive than this. I'd only buy this if I were you to put it on an airsoft gun or a 22 that you really didn't care much about. I absolutely would not put this on anything that my life would depend on, because my life is worth more to me than $35. With that though, a huge thank you to MidTen for sending this over and wanting me to review their product. Kudos to you and thank you. But I really need to thank all of you, my lovely viewers. Thank you very much for watching. And a huge thank you to my Patreon providers and my Subscribe Star subscribers. Without you, this truly wouldn't be possible. If you'd like to support my channel but don't want to join either of those, I completely understand. But you could still help by using my affiliate links in the description below, and or like, share, and subscribe as always. Again, thank you very much.